Welcome students to this session on organizing. At the end of this session, you will be able to understand the concept of organizing in management. You will also know about the various characteristics and importance of organizing. We'll also describe the process of organization and then explain the various principles that are linked with the concept of organizing. Towards the end, we will discuss about the various concepts like division of work, departmentalization, and also span of control. Let us first look at the various definitions that have been given by various management thinkers about the concept of organizing. So according to Louis Allen, organization is the process of identifying and group of various works that are to be performed, defining and delegating responsibility and authority, and also establishing relationship for the purpose of enabling people to work most efficiently. Another leading thinker, Chester Bernard, said organizing is a function by which the concern is able to define the role position, the jobs related, and also the coordination between authority and responsibility. Hence, we can say organizing basically refers to the following process. Number one, identifying and grouping of the work that is to be performed. Once that is done, in the next step, the job is to define and determine responsibility and authority for each of the job positions which have been identified. Then the establishing of relationship among various job positions is undertaken. And finally, once these three steps are done, the last step is to determine the detailed rules and regulations of working for individuals and groups within any organization. There are various reasons why organizing is considered to be important. Now let us look at what is the importance of organizing. Number one, organizing divides the work that is to be done into specific jobs and departments. It also helps to assign tasks and responsibilities to various individuals within the particular organization. It helps in establishing relationship among various individuals, groups, teams, and all the departments. So ultimately, how the departments are going to work in tandem with each other is also defined. Number four, organizing facilitates good administration. So once the work is organized for the management, for the administration, it is much more easier to supervise and ensure that the work is done more efficiently. Effective organizing encourages growth and efficient administration, as I just mentioned. Organizing also helps in allocating the resources within the organization. Dear students, you know that resources within the organization are always limited. So therefore, which department, which individual, which group needs what kind of resources, only effective organization will help in allocating the resources. Organizing also supports and encourages good human relations. So once individuals and groups know what is their role, what is their responsibility, and what is their authority, it has been observed that effective organizing results in lesser conflict and therefore better human relations. Organizing also ensures continuity of any organization on an enterprise, and it creates an environment for getting the work done. And at last, we can say good organizing means good coordination between various aspects individual of any organization. If you look at the characteristics of organizing, there are 5 major characteristics which you should be focused upon. First is division of labor. Second important characteristic is effective and good coordination. The third characteristic of organizing is that it helps in achieving the objectives of the organization. Organizing also clearly specifies and establishes a strong authority and responsibility structure. As we have been discussing, that along with responsibility comes certain authority, or along with authority there is a responsibility. So good organizing will ensure that the authority responsibility structure is well maintained. And finally, an important characteristic of organizing is good communication. Let us now look into the process of organizing. So what are the various aspects that are to be undertaken in order to ensure that good organizing is done? So the first step is identification and division of work. Here the task is that the complete work is ultimately divided into smaller components. So one, you have to identify what will be the smallest unit of work. Second, you also need to identify parameters on the basis of which the work needs to be divided. So once your work is identified and you have done an appropriate division of work looking into the synergy of various components, the next step comes is the concept of departmentalization. So all these similar tasks within the organization are put under one department, and ultimately you create multiple departments where each department is now assigned a specific task. So they have their own task to achieve. Within a particular department also, there are various subunits which can be created where the task can be assigned to these individuals or groups so that they know what is their responsibility and what is that they have to achieve. Once the assignment of task is done, the next step is to establish the organizational hierarchy. So in an organizational hierarchy, it is important to understand that who is the subordinate, who is the boss. So ultimately what you are deciding is that who will be reporting to him and who is the leader and who are the subordinates within the particular organization. So good organizational hierarchy will ensure that the entire objective of any organization is achieved with minimum hassle, with minimum effort and optimal utilization of resources. So after the organization hierarchy is established, in the step 5, we provide the resources to the members. Understand one thing, to achieve any task, the individual will need certain resources. The resources could be in terms of monetary resources or non-monetary resources. So the management has to ensure that the member has access to the desired resource, because without the desired resource, the work cannot be done. And finally, the coordination of efforts and the scheduling of activity should also be done. So it should not happen that the efforts are not synergized. A synergistic effort will always ensure effective achievement of the objectives. So to ensure good organizing, what are the various skills that are required? So the various skills that can help any individual, any manager, any organization to ensure that the organizing is good, you need the following skills. Number 1, planning, right? So you find that there is a direct link with planning as far as organizing is concerned. A good organizer should know how to prioritize things, which is the most important thing, which are the urgent things, where the resources should be provided in priority as compared to any other department. So prioritizing skills are another important aspects which will ensure good organizing in any organization. The third skill that should be paid lot of emphasis is the concept of coordination. An organizer should also be a good leader, so that leadership capabilities are directly linked with the concept of organizing. Organizer should also know that when to delegate the responsibility, how to delegate, how much to delegate, whom to delegate. So delegation skills are another important skills that are required. A good organizer should also be a good motivator. So motivation skills are therefore equally important. And finally, a good organizer should know the value and importance of time. So the time management skills also play very critical role. Let us now look at the various principles of organizing. So the first principle is the principle of specialization. Under this, the entire work of the organization is to be shared among the subordinates based on their qualification, abilities and skill, which means right job for the right person. So in this case, what you do is you identify the various qualification and abilities and skill of the individual, and then the work gets divided. So therefore this principle is called as the principle of specialization. The second principle is the principle of functional definition. So under this, all the work in the organization is to be fully and clearly described to the managers and subordinates. In other words, all the subordinates should know that what is their work, how their work is linked with the entire objective of the organization, what is the scope of the work. So ultimate clarity of the work definitely helps in the achievement of objectives. The third principle is the principle of supervision, or we also call it as the principle of span of control. So under this principle, it basically shows the number of employees that a single manager can handle and control efficiently. So there are two possibilities under this. Either you have a wide span of control or you have a narrow span of control. Under a wide span of control, a person can manage a large number of subordinates, whereas in a narrow span of control, every manager is given only few subordinates to manage. So therefore the vertical hierarchy in a narrow span of control tends to increase. The fourth principle is the principle of scalar chain. So in this, it is the chain of command or authorization in which there is minimum wastage of resources, the communication is unaffected, the overlapping of work is prevented, and therefore we say that this facilitates effective organization. The last principle is the principle of unity of command. In this, one subordinate is accountable to only one superior at given point of time. So this also ensures that there is no confusion. Every employee within the organization knows that whom he or she has to report and whose direction he or she has to take. So therefore this principle is called as the principle of unity of command. So when we talk of division of work, in fact this is the first principle that is given by Henry Fayol. So by division of labor, larger tasks are divided into smaller and simple operations in which each worker can subsequently become a specialist. So every employee, every worker is given a specific task and he or she keeps on performing that task so that in a longer run that's very efficient and therefore the entire work is taken care of. This division of labor in modern management thought is also described as the division of work. So initially it used to be division of labor, but now presently since the work gets divided, it is known as the division of work. This indicates that all the organizational tasks can be specialized, and hence the concept of job specialization also comes into play. Now let us look at the various advantages of division of work. So division of work basically increases the efficiency of labor. It increases in skill. As it is said, practice makes a man perfect. So therefore a person, if keeps on repeating a particular task, becomes much more skillful in that work. Division of work increases the output, because once an employee becomes efficient, there is a higher possibility that the output will be much more better. Division of work also increases in the employment opportunities of the individual, and it has been observed that division of work also reduces the overall cost of operations, and therefore there is an economy of time as far as division of work is concerned. However, there are certain disadvantages of division of work as well. The first disadvantage is that the work becomes monotonous or it becomes dull, and division of work ultimately results in increased dependence on any individual. Since the work is now linked with a specific individual, so therefore it has been observed that it increases the dependence of an individual. From employee perspective, there is a greater risk of unemployment also. So if that skill or that task is no more required, therefore the person may no more be required, and the person will not even be employable in any other organization. So that is one disadvantage of division of work from employees' point of view. There can also be loss of responsibility once the work gets too much divided. So if the employee is given a specific task and he or she is required to do some other task, he might say that I do not know how to do it, and therefore it is said there is loss of responsibility. It has also been observed that division of work also can result in exploitation of labor, or it has been observed that it can also increase the employee alienation, and therefore the employees might not really be motivated. Now let us look at the concept of departmentalization. So far we have discussed that the work gets divided and similar works can ultimately get combined into a department. So therefore we say departmentalization refers to the process of grouping activities into departments. So departmentalization basically refers to the formal structure of the organization composed of various departments and managerial positions and their relationship with each other. Departmentalization results from the division of work and the desire to obtain organization units of manageable size and to utilize the managerial abilities. There are various methods through which the concept of departmentalization can be operationalized. So the departmentalization can be done either by function or by process or by product. Some organizations even create department based on customer, the geographical territory, or the departmentalization can even be done based on the projects. So each project can have its own departments. Linked to this is another concept, which is the span of control. So by span of control or span of management, we basically mean that how many subordinates will report to a particular manager. For effective management, it was traditionally believed that a manager could supervise around 6 subordinates. But with passage of time, with technology becoming more dominant, the entire concept of span of control has now been relooked into. So what is the importance of span of control? Number one, a good effective span of control will always help in better supervision and control. Span of control also increases the efficiency of work and ensures that the professional relations are also good. Span of control will always encourage good communication and coordination, and it also helps in developing discipline within the organization as well as mutual trust among various employees within the organization. What are the various factors that affect span of control? So the number of factors which have been identified include: number one, what is the type of work which is to be performed? Span of control is also linked with the ability of the employee or the leader. How effective is the communication? The manager's skill, ability and experience will also determine what should be the right span of control. So somebody who has a larger experience and knows how to manage people can always have a wider span of control. As I just mentioned, with the intervention of technology, it has been observed that the manager can interact with number of people, because a lot of information now gets processed through technology, and you can monitor the work looking at the information that flows with the help of technology, even people working at remote locations. Another factor that determines the span of control is the degree of decentralization. So how much work has been decentralized within the organization will also determine. And of course, the quality of the leader or the leadership quality will have a significant impact in terms of identifying the span of control. There are various types of span of control which are classified as the wide span of control and the narrow span of control. So when we talk of the wide span of control, it basically means that every manager would have a larger number of subordinates to manage. This will be generally more than 6. And a narrow span of control would mean that every leader or every manager has a very few people to manage. So as discussed, span of control has a direct link with organizing. So dear students, in this session, we discussed about the concept of organizing in management. We also discussed the various characteristics as well as the importance of organizing. We also discussed about the process of organizing and later on highlighted various principles that have been established to understand the concept of organizing. And towards the end, we discussed the concept of division of work. We identified the relevance and importance of the concept of departmentalization. And towards the end, we discussed the concept of span of control, where we discussed that the span of control can either be wide span of control or a narrow span of control. Thank you.